We are talking Heretics, not to be confused with the Hugh Grant movie Heretic. This one's also known as the Heretic Murders and is a 2024 Adventures in an Old Dark House found footage movie directed by Jose Prendes. Prendes actually has directed a couple of movies that I've reviewed, both for the Asylum, and this one is also an Asylum movie. He did The Exorcists and The Monster Mash, both of which didn't mind actually, I have to say. And I do think sometimes the Asylum works best when they are not directly trying to do a kind of mockbuster, although I suspect this one was made and at least called Heretics because of that Hugh Grant movie. Anyway, Heretics. It is a found footage movie, and it's a very typical found footage movie. If you are a fan of the found footage genre, you may be interested in this, because it hits all those familiar marks. The story focuses on a group of kind of college age young adults, late teens, and they are kind of having a little bit of a house party. There's kind of like, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them, and they get into a kind of a little bit of a disagreement about something, but just kind of to try and keep the party going, they decide to go and explore this kind of abandoned house which has got this kind of reputation for kids going missing, as you do. They inevitably go there and find that this house is actually home to a group of kind of cultists, I guess you would call them, cult worshippers that are slaves to Lilith. And what will happen? You'll have to watch this movie and find out. Right, let's talk about Heretics then. As I've said, this movie is very typical of the found footage genre. So if you just want a very A to B, you know what to expect, then maybe this movie would be for you. As I say, with the Asylum movies, I think sometimes their horror ones come off the best. You don't get the kind of like the CGI monsters and things like that, and this one, because it's a found footage, it has a little bit more of a kind of a gritty feel. They have found quite a good location, it must be said, this kind of ruined old house and stuff, which looks like it's falling down, made for a kind of, well, it probably is a legitimately abandoned house, but so it suits this kind of story well in regards to that. I actually do think the movie has an interesting mystery about what's actually going on and who's involved. It doesn't completely work, and I'll come back onto that, but there is a, quite an intriguing plot thread that kind of comes out of this. And, I think, wow, that's pretty intriguing, I have to say. I think our main character, Ava, is a fairly good actress, to be honest. I quite liked her performance, and I have to say the majority of the cast, I think, of the young people, do a fairly good job, to be honest. I mean, they're playing probably, characters not dissimilar to themselves, so it's probably not a stretch, but I thought they were kind of, for the most part, there's one exception, believable in their roles, and so that was, they all kind of, they did the job that was expected of them, I would say. Now, this is going to be a bit of a negative and a positive, what I'm going to say next. This is a very, produced found footage movie. So if you want a raw, authentic, gritty, dirty, can't see very much, can't hear very much style found footage movie, that isn't this. This movie is filmed in the style of found footage, but I think it's clear someone's got a decent camera for the most part kind of filming this. The thing that stood out for me the most is the sound editing, because the sound all sounds perfect. If you have, as the film would depict, people using their camera phones and things to film, the audio would be a little spotty, let's say, but it isn't. So it sounds like you've got proper boom mics involved and things like that. There's also lots of kind of editing between shots, which is more traditionally film style movies than a found footage film. Now, that on the positive side of that, it makes it more of a palatable viewing experience, a more polished product, if you like. If you are not the biggest fan of found footage movies, it still is, I think, you know, has that feel of a found footage movie. But if you just think about it a little closely, you'll just see the quality here of the footage, the audio, the kind of the editing and things like that. Is a little bit it's a little bit too good to be on the authentic movie that would happen in the situation that it depicts. So, you know, there is that. So that leads me nicely on to what doesn't work. And obviously the flip side of that is I do think it sort of betrays some of the kind of the authenticity here in regards to having more of a kind of a polished feel. Betrays the fact that this is obviously more of a studio picture than anything else. Yeah, so maybe it loses a little bit of authenticity in regards to that. As I mentioned, I think the acting is for the most part relatively strong. You do have a small role for Eric Roberts here, you know, making sure he's keeping up with his most kind of prolific actor of all time record. But he's a minor part of the film. There is one actor here who I think is a little bit overcooked, and this is a person who you're thinking, okay, you've clearly got another agenda here because you're way overcooking what's kind of going on. And in regards to a story element, in regards, like, I won't say who, but it won't be hard to work out. You know, no one, when stuff to go, because this person suggests going to this house, and then no one really questions, why did you want us to come here? You know, when stuff to go sideways. Surely there must have been a reason, and you've been acting kind of sketchy all night. It's just way hammy. I mean, this script, I think, is partly to blame, if I'm honest. The script here makes this character almost like have a big mustache that they're twiddling. But I think the performance is overcooked as well. That's the one performance here I think was a little on the weaker side, if I'm honest. I don't think a found footage movie is helped by a recognisable actor. In this case, as I say, Mr. Roberts. It obviously, part of the fun of the found footage movie is the you know, you're brought into the kind of this reality and stuff, and when you have a recognisable actor in it, unless they're somehow playing themselves, it doesn't really work. And I know that people want to have a recognisable name on the credits and stuff, but I think it almost doesn't work in a found footage way. I have to say, this is a lot of running around screaming from young people, this movie. The movie doesn't really start getting with the actual kind of plot in earnest until about half an hour into the movie when we get into this house. Until then, it's a lot of like young people being young people. And then when you get into the house, there's lots of screaming, lots of running around different rooms, which this house, they can't get out of it somehow. And it's like, this house looks like it would be no problem to get out of. Glass, you know, plenty of windows and stuff, whatever. Okay, and then we have the plot. Now this has some intriguing elements to it. What actually is the reveal, who's involved, things like that. And okay, that was interesting, but how did this happen? Because it's such a kind of like in one hand, it's such a kind of an interesting reveal about what's actually the kind of the situation here. You know, it's thinking, okay, well, how did we get to this point? How did certain people get involved? How did this go undetected? Things like this. Why? You know, it doesn't really give you much in regard to that. So it sets up a fairly interesting kind of, you know, idea here in regards to a bit of a plot wrinkle. But then you don't really feel you get that resolution with it, or at least a lot of exposition with it. You just get, oh, okay, I guess we've just got to accept, you know, shit happens, I suppose. In a way that has some good elements, and I say it's a serviceable found footage movie, but I don't think it excels particularly well. And I have to say the negatives for me just drop it down to a slightly below average movie, and as such I'm going to give this one a 4 out of 10. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment and I shall look forward to you next time.